It's 9:14, and we have some information that we want your children to watch right now. There is tension across the country about these recent mass shootings. None of them happened at schools, but they bring back memories of Parkland and Sandy Hook, just to name a few. One thing we tend to see during the school year, kids making threats to their school and to their classmates. They may be doing it as a joke or trying to get attention, but it has some very real consequences. So joining us this morning is our crime and safety expert, Ken Jefferson, with some important information. Ken, you have worked so many jobs in law enforcement with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and you're no stranger to investigating and learning about these threats from students. It's not anything new, but it is still a very relevant topic.
It's a very relevant topic in the times that we're living in now. And we've heard the old cliche, kids will be kids, and they're going to do what kids do. Well, kids can't be kids and do what they do with the hoax threat, living in the society that we're living now, looking at these mass shootings and these violent, turbulent interruptions of schools every day with shootings going on. There's been 251 shootings, mass shootings this year in the United States since January. So when a kid decides, whether it be on social media, texting, decides to make a hoax threat, that's a serious crime. It's a serious offense. It's actually a federal crime. Now, it can be prosecuted in the local level or the state level, but it's a federal crime, and they can receive up to 5 years in prison. A kid does not want to start his adult life as a felon, because that's going to follow them for the rest of their life. So making a threat, you might say it's a joke or I'm playing around or whatever. Don't joke like that. Don't play around like that. And then imagine all of the resources that law enforcement has to use when there's a threat. When there's a threat, they're going to respond. They're going to react. So you got first responders with resources being used. You've got the actual school.
Sure.
You've got all these things going into motion for no reason at all, because a kid wants to joke around.
And listen, as a reporter, I've spoken with many of their family members and their friends, and a lot of times I hear this statement, oh, he or she didn't mean it. They were just crying out for attention. That's not acceptable for parents.
No.
They can't make that excuse, because we have seen it time and time again where these children that have displayed these red flags have gone on to actually execute these crimes.
Yeah, if a kid, and particularly if the parents are watching now, it's a good time to have that conversation with your kids before school starts, to let them know that you can't play around with this. Don't text it, don't post it, don't talk about things that you know not to be true, particularly with a threat. I can give you a real life story right here in Jackson without naming any organizations or students that did the same thing, that said that they were going to do harm to a particular school right here locally, and they didn't think that law enforcement officials could find them, because they left a message on a voicemail, on a throw-down phone, if you will. Law enforcement officials found them, and the consequences could have been very serious. So you have, first of all, you have to take the threat serious.
Sure.
Even if it's a hoax, but you don't know it's a hoax until you investigate it. So they have to investigate it, which means that they're utilizing law enforcement resources to do all these sorts of things. That's money. That's taxpayers' money wasted right there. Secondly, if they find the person, or I should say when they find the person, you're going to be facing, again, a federal crime, punishable by up to 5 years in prison. So think about all these things before you decide to joke around or to play with making a threat against a school.
Absolutely. And if you're somebody that sees these threats, becomes aware of them, you have to go back to that old adage, see something, say something. You can't just brush it off and say, oh, that's just a problematic child. That's just somebody that wants to scare people. Nowadays, no matter what their age is, no matter what their background is, we have to all take that responsibility, no matter what.
For the most part, parents are going to say just what you just said. Oh, he didn't mean it.
Right.
He was just playing around or whatever. Parents cannot stand in the gap for their child if they do something like this, because law enforcement officials are going to ignore that child, that parent, and they're going to pursue prosecution for that child.
And it goes back to at home.
It starts at home.
That's where you can stop these problems.
It starts at home.
All right, Ken Jefferson, thank you so much for coming on. And
My
for
pleasure.
full disclosure, we had planned for this interview with Ken before this weekend's mass shootings, and unfortunately those happened, making this even more relevant and even more important of a topic for us to talk about. So we're going to post this full interview on our website, news4jax.com. You can share it with your child, watch it with them, have that conversation. Lauren?